Looks like we are live from Boston, NMC17 Summer Conference, joining Gardner, Campbell, and Christina, Engelbart, and Michael and AK, and it looks like Greg's there as well. So why don't I pass it over to the on-site folks?
Hi, this is Greg Dillon, instructional technologist from Gordon College. Really loving the conference here.
Hello, everybody. AK from UMass Boston, educational technology troublemaker.
Michael Berman, citizen of the world. Glad to join you.
Gardner Campbell, one step ahead of the law.
In the 21st century.
Christina Engelbart with the Doug Engelbart Institute from California.
So why don't you let us know what's going on your side of the conference, Gardner and Christina?
Well, this is a fabulous conference. It's first of all, we're in Boston, Massachusetts, and there's how many universities in Boston that are attending the conference? I can't remember the number they said, but it's great to have all this local influx, in addition to some international participation. And I don't know, meeting all the people, the community is just always so fabulous to connect with. I meet new people every time, and it's like a reunion. In a way, and the sessions have been fabulous, and I just wish I could go to all of them. And I don't know, that's an introduction.
So, wow, where do I even start? I guess I'll say this is kind of year 2 of the big transition, and what's different this year is that we have a new executive director for the NMC, Dr. Eden Dahlstrom. And she has already very wonderfully and generously communicated her personality, her particular interests. Her Twitter handle is Data Diva. So everybody, please go follow her right away. And Diva is spelled D-E-E-V-A. So this is D-A-T-A D-E-E-V-A. Follow her, please, and immediately inundate her with welcome messages, images of leis, whatever it is that you like to do in your culture to make people feel welcome. Because she takes all that in stride. She describes herself as a data diva, but at the beginning of one of the sessions yesterday, she had a lovely quotation from the Persian poet Rumi as a way of framing how she was going to tell us about herself in her new relationship to the NMC. So I guess one of the things I would say that's really remarkable and very heartwarming and hopeful about this year's conference in particular is not only do we have a new leader for the organization, but she has very quickly, and I think accurately, reflected back to us what she has learned of our ethos, and has done that in a very genuine and authentic way, very warm and personable, as she goes through all these moving parts for the first time. And there are a lot of moving parts at this conference, I can tell you that. So I wish you could be here to kind of experience Eden Dahlstrom in the room, but given who she is, you will be experiencing Eden Dahlstrom.
And she was in this room 45 minutes ago.
Oh, well.
And I got her to recite poems.
Oh, well, so there you go.
So some of the people on here.
That's outstanding. And so you can see what she does is memorable, and you'll continue to hear about it. So that's one of the big things I would say. And the other thing I would say is that this is a great opportunity for the NMC to do the work of renewal and regeneration as a community, not just as an institution. The community recognizes what brings us together and what binds us together. We want to live in the future, but we want to build a future that you would want to live in. And we are people who recognize that we are outliers who are also very passionate about equity and access. So you can hear there are interesting relations between distinctiveness and inclusion that we continue to think about in ways that I think are pretty interesting and challenging, and I hope end up being part of the conversation that people want to hang on to and continue to experience. It looks like they say never be on stage with a puppy or a baby. So I don't see a puppy right now, but I think I see a baby.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Oh, thank you for joining us, Sam.
Congratulations.
Hi.
No problem. Marley was tempted, is excited to make her very first virtually connecting debut.
Uh-huh.
And how old is Marley? Tell everybody.
Marley is 5 days old.
Woo.
She's 5 days old. She's taken a nap. She's as dream learning, as I say. And this is our future generation of students right here. This is our future, our future voices represented.
Well, when she wakes up, would you please tell her that we love her very much and want to build the best future for her that we can imagine right now until she's old enough to start building with us.
I can't wait until that day. I'm so excited to find out what she wants to be in this lifetime, and knowing that there's great people out there like you guys and everyone in the audience supporting her in her dreams, is everyone in the NMC community, is a really exhilarating and awesome feeling bringing her into the world.
Well, we miss you, Sam, but we know you're here in spirit.
Yeah.
And,
You're doing important work.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes, you
Very
are.
important work.
Yes, you're inventing the future too, aren't you?
That's true. Speaking of which, I'll get back at it, but I wanted to pop in. I couldn't. Oh, let's see the baby again. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we love you, Sam, but it's the baby we
Yeah.
love.
Pretty much.
That's okay. Wait, maybe I can get an overhead view.
Yeah.
Wait, no, that's not. I'm still figuring this out, but there she is.
Beautiful.
Oh my God.
So cute. All right, bye guys. Have the best time.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's bye.
That was great to see. That's nice. Yeah, I was actually going to add from what Gardner was talking about, and the community experience and bringing that into the NMC, and how do we keep co-evolving the whole experience. And I thought the plenary speaker was so fabulous for that. It's important anyway, but for this sort of new embarkation on user experience and the importance of what the users are thinking, and so what does the community want, and how do we embrace, how do we learn what that is together, and reinvent together what this whole community is about. And that's very exciting to me too. I actually just joined the board of the NMC, and this was my first time here as a board member, and so now I'm trying to wear both hats, and it's I don't know, kind of fabulous. I love being here.
Eden mentioned in the previous session that once the conference is finished, she has to take the word "new" off of her tag.
Right. She's not new anymore.
Yes.
Right.
Always a sad day because the honeymoon's over now. Let's make this
Yeah.
thing work.
Right. Yeah. This is her induction. Yeah.
So one thing you might be interested in is the student panel that we just heard.
Yes.
Have we talked about that already?
Mhm.
So I'll just share something that was of interest to me, and I confess I was a little. I hope you're sitting down. I was a little disruptive, but it was interesting because the panel asked the question of the students: how can we help you succeed in school? How can the technological environment that you're in actually help you do what you need to do in school better? And the answers that came back had to do with, keep your messaging focused, make your communications concise, be sure that you use only one platform with a single sign-on, don't confuse us with having to go here, there, and everywhere. And in my wicked, admittedly, little mind, I kept thinking, so this is what you want us to do so that you can get through the experience.
Mhm.
Is there another question to ask, which I thought there was, and I asked it, which is, how can the technological environment that we have in our schools help you create and feel like you're part of, participating in, a community of learners? And suddenly other things started coming out. Some of them, things we thought about before, like let's say a Facebook group. But one I was fascinated by was Quora, which is probably an experience or a platform that many of you are familiar with, where basically it's like an ask me anything of the world to the world. Mm-hmm. And this one fellow had a roommate who was so obsessed with Quora that he would work for hours on the questions, and the answers would come and ask him, his friend, his roommate, do you think I've worded this well? And of course, my little English professor heart is going pitter pat. How can I make student work in my class as addictive and as community feeling as Quora? And it was just fascinating that the idea of the technological environment of a university as conducing to community felt so different from, please make sure we're just on one platform. All of that stuff went away as soon as we started thinking about the really social aspects of learning. And I just found that completely fascinating and, frankly, a little disturbing as well. I don't know that we're asking the best questions all the time.
Yeah.
And Gardner, if I can add, I was at the session with the panelists, and I noticed today all of the first questions was kind of bringing about the same answers from the students that they were talking about in the session. It was almost as if they had prepared these answers. But as soon as you asked that question about what creates community online for you, all of a sudden their eyes lit up and they were like, oh my gosh, I'd never even thought about this, and I have something to say about it. Yeah.
The thing that's, it's not amazing to me because I kind of feel like I knew this answer, but people who've been taken in by the whole digital native myth would be looking at these individuals and saying, these digital natives, oh my God, they don't know this, that, or the other thing, but we've been told this all these years. And they're, well, beyond the sort of obvious for me, well, duh, of course, they need to be taught certain things, they need to be apprenticed into these tools, is about community recognition. And the thing that came to me in terms of Quora was, when you participate on Quora, you get recognized as an expert when you're answering certain questions. And the other thing is, when you're recognized as an expert, that doesn't tie in with how we recognize expertise in academia, which is grades-based, and your grades also impact the financial aid that you get. So students become adept at doing efficient work, at getting the minimum possible grade to pass at the level that they need to continue on to the next step, as opposed to working toward reputation, which is what really interests them, demonstrating their expertise, but that doesn't get recognized. So they do the minimum level here so that they can spend more time playing and learning and demonstrating here.
Another
Tragic.
I was talking with some people about this yesterday, and another way to rephrase what you said is, Gardner, is if you ask an instrumental question, you get an instrumental answer.
That's right.
If we haven't, and I think we also have to recognize we do have an instrumental relationship with a lot of what we have in education. I have a wonderful video of a student talking about this and saying, you can make it as hard as you want for me to figure out what my assignment is, but I'd rather work on the assignment. And we tend to actually fetishize how difficult it is to get through college, as if learning how to work your way through the financial aid office is a growth experience. And maybe it is to some extent, but is that the best experience we want the students to have? It's that time that they could spend with other students and with a great mentor and instructor could be way more valuable. And yet, you look at what you do in orientation, you spend 2 days learning how to navigate a system that, if you actually had the tools and the resources to rebuild it the way it should have been built from the beginning, you wouldn't need a 2-day introduction. You need a half hour, and then maybe you could then start focusing on community building, which actually I know a lot of student services organizations really do spend time doing that, but so much time is spent. Here's the financial aid office, here's the business office. Be sure you pay your bills on time. Here's how you get your parking permit. But you need all that stuff, and we make it so hard. People waste a ton of time on it. So I think students do want to simplify that, and they're right. But then I think we confuse it. We confuse that with getting your education, which is not an instrumental relationship.
No, it is not, and that makes me think of to riff on what you're saying. Typically, where you find an emphasis, let's say in higher education, that's where I am, on building community, is that's student affairs. Well, okay, that's fine. Who's in charge of intellectual community? Because it's the power of thinking together in the presence of people who spend their lives, and for some reason can make a living at it, thinking hard about aspects of human existence, the professors. Who's doing that? Really good professors will try to do that in each of the classes they teach, but where's that connective tissue where the students understand, I'm not just taking 5 classes, I have 5 lenses onto a shared human endeavor related to meaning making, agency, and significant intervention in the world we build together. What is it that has made us make that invisible? And I have some ideas about why it's happened, but it's a tragedy, and it's why these questions don't come up, because students are like, I'm supposed to think about this out of class? With whom? And then you're just like, wow.
And we should add, Gardner, it's on us as faculty to do that as well, and not just feel, oh, this is my box with my course, and,
that's right.
and then we move on to the next semester. We have to be involved with our students through their entire lifetime of learning, not just that time they pass through our classroom.
I mean, I couldn't agree with that more. And then I'm in meetings of departments with my faculty colleagues, and somehow we end up just talking about budget, course titles, and how we can't get more than 30 characters into Banner, and oh, look what time it is.
Right.
I'm like,
it sounds familiar.
I'm sorry, am I triggering PTSD?
It's a Banner.
I know, right?
I think Tom Woodward made a good point. It was about just before 1 p.m. your time. I guess it was about that panel where Tom was saying student voice at conferences is odd. By attending, students likely outliers by default, so they're representative better than nothing. And I made the point that, well, then all of the faculty there are not representative of the whole of faculty. And Tom made a more important thing, that sure, it's the outliers. How do we generalize that on the way down of what's happening with the outliers to the rest? And that ties into this conversation, I think, as well.
Well, for me, that's a role of leadership, not necessarily to devise the correct incentive, not necessarily to hand down, dicta from on high. But one of the essential functions of leadership is to model and recognize that responsibility and that opportunity that you've just articulated, Ken. If you see a provost modeling that and engaging with faculty who are doing that, people get that message. Oh, I see. That's the ethos of this place. It's one of the reasons why I talked about Eden's leadership so much at the beginning, because it's so vital in the midst of keeping the trains running and all those other Mussolini era things that we talk about when we talk about leadership. A leader is someone who says, here are the things that matter. Let me remind you of that. Let me remind you of that by doing them myself. Let me remind you of that by recognizing and celebrating those who are doing that. And a leader has an opportunity to be such a powerful model in that way.
I'd like to add, on the other side of things, the non-faculty side of things, when educational technologists and instructional designers get together, we often tend to point the finger to the faculty and saying, well, we really want to do this, but the faculty aren't letting us. And then the faculty may point to the instructional and say, academic freedom. So I think we need to, going back to the previous VC that we had, is breaking down those barriers. Instead of seeing what everybody does separately and pointing fingers, it's coming together and say, what can we do together?
Right. Yeah.
Jump in, everybody.
Room.
As around the conference about the size of the lanyards, are they too small? Any sore necks out there?
There's so much. I only have 2 ribbons. There are people walking around with many more.
My ribbons have fallen off.
Yeah, and we have little.
If I realized there was a competition, I would have added more.
Yeah, there you go. And there's more.
I have board member, survivor, and SMH on mine.
What is SMH?
Shaking my head.
I have board member, presenter, and you should hear it on vinyl.
Oh, perfect. Oh my God.
Somebody gave me that. So that's another thing that's really cool about this conference that's emerged from some of the conversations we've had. And this may be of interest to the virtually connecting audience out there, is that people feel that one of the bedrocks of their experience here, and one of the reasons they keep coming back again and again is that they can count on knowing and being known. Not that it's a club or it's exclusive, although sometimes, these experiences can feel that way, but that this is a chance, people would bring up a sticker because they know it would be the right one for you, which is kind of a thrill, Oh, you were paying attention. You heard about my record collection. Oh, that's cool. And that's more widespread here. I think partly because as conferences go, it's pretty small. And there are so many people here who live for this kind of intensity and wish they could feel it more often, that although I think we're all exhausted by the end, it's a good exhaustion. And we feel like we know we're going to get that again if we come back, and that's very precious, and it's hard to find those communities sometimes.
Right. Yeah, and I think part of that is with people working. There are people who are sort of doing. So many people doing business as usual and only rarely get a chance to think about, oh my God, how can we do this better? But I don't have time, and I don't know who to work with on this. And then there are other people who are so so on the frontier that they have no one to talk to about these things, but they feel all alone in it. And so coming to a community like this, I think is so powerful because they get to have those meta conversations that no one at home seems to understand or appreciate. So they really feel like they're in there with their client, with their tribe.
And then meet people to connect with later, so maybe they don't feel as isolated.
Exactly, and then gain, first of all, to be accepted, and then also people to collaborate with and that kind of thing. And we were talking about collaboration earlier and learning community and how do you create that. And I was thinking about, so we sort of come from, how collaboration is not just like who's going to do what and how do we get it done, but how do you bring people together to spark the insights, to inspire, somebody says something, somebody says something else, and then all of a sudden you have these insights coming out that none of you could have come up with. Anybody could have come up with, who's going to do what when, but those insights on how do you spark that and how do you, and those kinds of things coming up in a place like this. But I'm also, and I'm sure other people too, how do you get that to happen when you're not there together? And so, how could we do this in the future? I mean, this is, actually my father pioneered teleconferencing 50 years ago. We still can't, how do we, we still don't really have the tools or support to do this remotely so much. I mean, we're getting close, and it's really great to connect with you guys. I think it's fabulous, but how do you do that? And how do you do it in a classroom? And how do you do it where people are participating? So I think my favorite session so far was the one I got to co-present with Gardner, because I got to hear about his latest project. I kind of followed it, but then getting that overview, the way you presented it, the transformative learning through everyone, a participatory, online course where everybody's assignments are all seen by each other. They're doing it for each other. It's not just something you hand in, and that it's so fabulous. And then commenting on each other's work and they're actually building the knowledge that they're moving forward with and building on each other's inspirations. And to me, that's exactly where it all needs to be going.
Is that open learning?
Yes.
And it works so well. I've been doing this for a couple of years with my students, and Friedel had Gardner show up on her blog and comment, and she was so excited. She came right to this chair. He commented on my blog, and this is such a wonderful experience. And I think that's why what we're doing here, we're virtually connecting, is it's not the same as being there, but it really helps. And I think we need to bring that to my students, or our students. I've been trying with my students. I tried with my 9-year-old who connected with a classroom in Winnipeg, Canada, and they asked him questions about what Mexico's like. But this is getting better, but there's a lot farther to go.
Right.
And at the same time, for it to get better, we need to have better and somewhat stranger ideas. And
Exactly.
so one way to sum that up is I feel much less crazy at an NMC conference. which may be, it may be a bug, it may be a feature. Posterity will judge. Right?
It's only temporary. It'll be all right.
I felt a slight sensation of pressure and a little discomfort, but I'm okay now.
You know, it also demonstrates both your comment and the aspect about how well the technology is getting better, but it's not there. That it's not just a technology change; it's a social change.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a social revolution that we're going through.
Right.
And I do, you know, one of the things I admire about NMC and I get here is most of the time, most of the people here get that, right?
Mhm.
That's right.
Despite our odd and anachronistic name, New Media Centers, you know, somehow we've brought together people who who really want to invent the future, as another one of our idols said. You know, we want to create the future by inventing it. And we know it's not about a startup or a research lab. It's about doing things in our lives and changing how we live.
Right.
In a kind of action research,
Yeah, right.
personalized action research that's ongoing. Our lives become kind of research experiments.
That's
And
right.
that's changing how we think.
And that's changing
Yeah.
how we think. As you know,
Right.
your father was great in observing that it's not the computers it's not just about the computers, it's about how the human mind changes.
Right.
And
that's the hardest thing to do.
and that's the hardest thing to change. I mean, it's based on, you know, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution that our minds work the way they work.
Mhm.
And yet computers are evolving so much more, communications evolving so much more quickly.
Right.
And it's a race for us to keep up with it.
Yeah.
Well, if I, as a crazy person who's feeling okay with that right now, my comment on the nature of mind, I just came from a session with Nick Monfort, who actually lives in a new media universe because he does what he calls exploratory programming, which is more or less synonymous with creative programming. And he contrasted the work he does with what we would usually think of as programming, which is somebody sitting down and coding to make the website look this way or to make the application run that way. But in the world of creative or computing as inquiry, exploratory computing, many times what you trigger or you help people experience is a sense of boundlessness. So this gets back to the mind thing. What do we know about our minds? We know that they are not infinite, but they seem to be able to tap into a weird kind of boundlessness. For example, I just went to Bermuda, but I'm back now. And that was all in my head. So who needs the interwebs when you have a mind? If I ever get one, I'll let you know. But I mean, there is within the experience of being human this very strong impulse towards boundlessness, but also some anxiety that comes with boundlessness because you don't want to lose your moorings altogether. And I think this is a technological moment when we have to rethink where we think those boundaries are and start to decide more mindfully, well, where do we want boundaries and where do we want to do more exploratory and connecting activities? And daily life is usually just about getting through stuff. But reserving some part of our CPU cycles up here to think about what a strange thing our lives and our imaginations are, and how can we experience each other and build the world more justly by exploring boundlessness and by putting together, you know, the kinds of boundaries that actually encourage growth and honor difference. That's a hard thing to think about, but we have more ways to do that now than we ever have before. And I find that exhilarating. What do you think?
Wow.
I'd just like to talk about the concept of belongingness. And, you know, I think that's something, you know, between students and faculty, academics is providing students with the permission to say who they are and share just everyday life things. I think, you know, sort of, you know, we all share very common things. We all like food because we eat, we like music, we might have shared hobbies, you know, and those conversations, and it's finding the right space. So I was really interested about your panel, you know, where could we have this conversation space? Because, you know, we think about, okay, we've got our virtual learning environments, whether it's Blackboard or whatever, that doesn't seem to work, you know, and encroaching into Facebook. I'm hesitant, you know, that's, I'd encourage creation of those spaces or getting students to create those spaces for incoming students, but that's not quite right. And we just haven't got that forum, I don't think, yet, that's the one-stop place that, you know, that's where the conversations could take place. But then does it need to be just that one place? You know, there's all these kind of question marks and conflicting views from students as well as themselves. But it's that opportunity to get to know and learn from each other and learn about each other. And I think I work in the Department of Computing, and a lot of our students are not the best communicators, let's just say, that they're, for whatever reasons, find it quite difficult. So are there other ways that they can express themselves and share those common things, which then, you know, says, oh, we've got that in common, you know, we can, you know, get chatting and whatever. So
those are great questions. I am passionately interested in what Randy Bass calls whole person learning. And I think that what you're describing is a human necessity. We want to know and be known. But at the same time, there are risks associated. And the plain fact is, if I get to know you better, my identity will change to a certain extent. That's kind of the good news and the bad news, right? And that stuff's unpredictable. I just don't see how we can build a world together without asking the questions that you're asking and exploring with others in some, whatever the place is, it has a character of hospitality, of generosity, of trust. And that takes, that truly takes a village.
So you don't think that's the discussion board in the LMS?
Roger that.
My tagline is inspired by a tweet you tweeted earlier, Gardner. Creating dumpsters and setting them on fire.
Excellent.
Well, I'm honored. I'm pretty sure I'm honored. and speaking of, we have to go. Yeah. It's our closing plenary, and yeah. So
and we have the amazing Audrey Waters to listen to.
We do indeed, but thank you all so much for this opportunity. Yeah. It's
thank you.
Thank you to both of you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Say hello to Audrey for us.
Will do.
Take the laptop with you so we can watch.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
Have an excellent day.
Bye.
Hey guys.
See you, Kay. See you, Greg. See you, Michael.
Joe.
I still got it running live here.
Yes.
Wow. That was mind-blowing.
That was so good. Wow.
I could listen to Gardner all day.
But
yeah.
It was nice to see that thread from Christina, you know, the legacy of where we've been and where we thought we were going and where we really are going, and then take it to the next step with the baby. There's like going.
Looking back and looking forward. I think it's so important to look back as well, but yeah, we have to look forward.
Did Christina say her father helped?
Yeah, Doug Engelbart.
Doug Engelbart.
Okay, so I thought it was Bonneville that invented video conferencing, so it wasn't.
I think they're both involved, but we'll have to go back and check the history lesson. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to close things up here pretty quick because I got to do a couple more things before I do another VC session here. And it's great talking to everyone. Good to see you, Sue.
Yes, and you, Ken.
All right, I'll close up the broadcast here.